Hello, and welcome back to Coffee Talk, where I talk about things over coffee. For those of you who don't know me, I am an author. I was gonna say writer, and then I went to author, so I had to do a weird but I am an author and writer. I've written a couple of romance books. I have 3 more books in production right now. And I'm an indie author. I am also a philosophy major, and so I am constantly in my own thoughts. I pay someone to keep me in my own thoughts. Thank you, university systems, for being so expensive. But today I wanted to talk about imposter syndrome. For anyone who doesn't know what imposter syndrome is, it's basically when you're an artist and you don't think you're as good as everyone says you are. Now, the ironic thing is, I think every artist, every writer, and maybe even some professionals as well, they all struggle with imposter syndrome, which I find really ironic because most artists are kind of narcissistic. We kind of have to be, though, right? So, if someone comes along and tells you you suck as an artist, you kind of get angry and you're like, no, I'm better than you think I am. But then at the same time, if someone says, oh, you're amazing, you're like, no, you're not as good. I'm not as good as you think I am. So it's this weird kind of paradox. Artists are kind of a weird kind of paradox, right? We need attention all the time, and we need praise, and we believe that we have a gift to share with the world, and then once we share it, we also think that we're imposters and we're not as good as everyone says we are, and we don't deserve the praise that we were seeking in the first place. So it's really, really paradoxical. But I think part of it is that all artists have a perfect image of themselves. So they see the artist they want to be, but they aren't that artist yet. And so we think of ourselves as imposters because we haven't reached that ideal self yet as an artist. And I think a good thing to remember is that you probably won't ever reach that ideal because that ideal is not human. That ideal is not flawed, and we're flawed. And actually, I think that us being flawed is what makes good art, right? Because if we were perfect, then we wouldn't have anything to write about, probably. The reason that people write dystopian novels is because a utopian novel would be boring, right? A utopian novel, everyone's happy, society works, the end. It doesn't work. Do you know any utopian novels? I don't know any utopian novels, except maybe the book Utopia, but I haven't read that. But I don't know if it's fiction or not. I don't know anything about that book. I should go look it up. But I think what happens is we have those expectations for ourselves, and then when we don't meet it, we consider ourselves an imposter, which doesn't really it doesn't help us. It doesn't really help us any. And so if someone tells you oh, you're an awesome artist, and then you haven't reached that ideal yet, you automatically think, oh no, I'm an imposter. But here's my question. If you're an imposter, if you're not as good as everyone says you are, so what? Honestly, so what? So what if you're not as good as you want to be, or as you believe people think you are? So I feel in the entertainment industry, a lot of people are not professionally amazing. You know what I mean? Some people, some of the most famous artists are actually not that great at what they do, and some of them are amazing, and some of them are just not. I mean, I can think of a lot of writers that just have bestsellers, and then I read their books and I'm like, why? Just why? As from a professional standpoint, this shouldn't be, what it is. But the thing is people don't come to you because you're popular or because you're the best in the field. Not usually, unless you're not in art. not in art. If you're like in a more professional field, like obviously I go to a lot of professionals when I study philosophy, right? Because I want people that know what they're talking about. Or if you're going to like medical journals, like please go to someone that knows what they're talking about. But when it comes to art, it has nothing to do with your skill level, to be honest. Like your skill level can be trash. What people connect to is how they feel when they see your work. So for example, like if siren, can you hear the siren? If I forgot my train of thought now. The siren threw me off completely. But if people feel something when they see your work, that's what they remember. They don't really care so much if it is, you know, the most amazing piece of work ever written by human hands. So what they want is something that makes them feel something, or something that helps them work through something. There's tons of like movies and shows and things that make me cry, because it's not because they're amazing scripts or anything, although there are those for sure, but it's mostly just because of the way it connects me with my own life, right? And that's why we get into art. We get into art to express ourselves, to connect to our emotions, and our art goes to somebody else and they connect with their emotions because they couldn't express it, but we expressed it for them. So that's why people connect to art. And to be honest, like if you're an imposter, who cares? Like if you're not as good as people think you are, is it important? Like, is it? Because you make people feel something. And I mean, man, if you feel like a con artist, then I mean, I'm just at the point where I'm all like, welcome to the con, suckers. Like if this is my con, if I'm terrible, I'm just gonna go with it. If you're enjoying it, great. Yeah, just great. There's no problems there. If you're connecting with emotions, if you're spending your time reading my books and enjoying it, then I don't care if I don't have the skills that I need. I mean, I do care. Like I want to keep working, and you should keep working as an artist. You should keep working towards that ideal self, because it makes you a better artist, it makes you a better person, it makes you better at your craft, and you should always improve your craft. You should never be at a point where you're like, well, I'm the best. Like, I don't think that's a thing. If it is, I mean, if it is, live your best life. I don't know what to tell you on that one. But I will tell you this story. I made the mistake once. I was talking to a reader of mine, and they were talking about just how much they enjoyed my book, and just how they hoped that I would just like blow up and sell a whole bunch of books and all this other stuff. And I made the mistake of saying, "Oh, thanks so much, that means a lot to me, but I think I'm just a nobody at the moment." And I didn't realize how insulting that was, to tell one of your fans or readers or someone who admires your work. I didn't realize how insulting it was until she was insulted. And so she was insulted because she connected with my work, she enjoyed it, and to say that I'm a nobody, to say that any artist that someone enjoys is a nobody, is so insulting, because that person has an emotional connection to them, and that person felt something while absorbing that person's art. So, I mean, to this person, it doesn't matter if I am on the bestseller list. It doesn't matter if I'm on bookshelves. It doesn't matter if I am in interviews, and it doesn't matter if I write the greatest piece of literature in all of human history. Because my first book that released was a romantic comedy. So, I mean, it's not epic literature, but it's enjoyable. And I enjoyed writing it, and I even enjoyed reading it now sometimes, and I enjoy the characters. I love my characters. Even if I think my writing is kind of in some places. But to the audience, your skill level is admirable, but it's not the main reason your audience connects with you. It's not the main reason your audience buys your art. It's not the main reason the audience wants to get to know you, right? The main reason is because you make them feel something. You connect with them. You are using your skills that you do have. Maybe it's not the perfect skills, but you're using your skills that you have at the best capacity at the moment to reach other people in their emotions and help them either work through it or realize something about themselves or just feel something, even if it's just enjoyment, even if you think they're just kind of wasting their time reading it, because imposter syndrome will tell you, oh, your work is a waste of time and things like that. But I mean, if your con is connecting people to their emotions and making them feel something and improving their life, wouldn't that be the con that you want to do? Like, if that's your con, do it. Like, it's the only con I think that makes the world a better place, like makes life better. I can't tell you how many times, like, just watching a movie when I'm upset, or reading a book, or just written word in general. The written word, it has helped me through so much. And it doesn't matter if it's fiction or nonfiction. It doesn't matter if it's a script or poetry or whatever. It has just helped me through so much. And the artists that have created those things will never know at what level it has impacted me, even if the craft itself is not amazing. But that's not what you're looking at as an audience member, right? So if you are selling the con of you being an amazing artist, even though you're not, I would just say, sell the con. Just consider yourself the greatest thief of all time and just steal people's time with your art, even if it's not amazing. Which, I mean, you're going to always be the worst critic of your art, right? Because when you start a project, you have a vision for it, and the vision never comes to being, ever. In fact, usually your art pieces will take a completely different direction, and then you kind of have to wave goodbye to that original ideal that you had in the first place. But your art is supposed to, I guess, mutate is a word I would use. Your art is supposed to take its own direction. That's how you know you're doing it right. If you are forcing control over every single piece of your art, it's not going to be good art anyways. So I think the thing to remember is your art pieces will never reach that ideal, and you will probably never reach the ideal artist you want to be. But that doesn't mean you give up. That means you work towards it, right? Because even when you work towards it, that makes you a better artist. Because even if you're an imposter now, you can always become better, right? So even if you release a piece and you hate it, which, by the way, happens a lot to musicians. It happens a lot to musicians. Here's another story for you. I had dinner with a couple friends of mine. They were in a band. One of them was my college classmate, and then the other one was the lead singer of the band. And they asked me, like, which song was my favorite, because I was coming to see them perform. And I told them which song was my favorite, and the lead artist just goes, ugh, I hate that song. And I'm like, but it's your song. He's like, I know, but I hate it. And my college friend, he was like, oh, but she's been our fan since the beginning. Like, that's one of our beginning songs. We should be excited that she likes that one. And the lead singer was like, ugh, no. So I think there's a bunch of artists that have released something and they're not very fond of it, but people love it, right? And so I would say that even if, you can't reach that ideal self, and even if you release maybe mediocre things, which happens all the time, right? Even the best artist will release something that's not that great. I would say just keep going towards that ideal, even though you can never reach it, because it makes you better, right? It makes you better. And maybe you won't love your art as much as other people do, but I don't know if we're supposed to love our art as much as other people do, because we're expressing ourselves, which is very vulnerable and messy to us, but it's very clear to the reader, to the audience. So, and some of it, we just feel like we haven't reached that ideal project because we had that vision. But here's the thing, the audience never saw that vision. And maybe that vision isn't even possible. And I don't like to say that things are impossible, but I would like to say that we're human, and even as artists, we can create almost everything, but there are still limitations depending on our skill level and just human communication and anything else. But we might never reach that ideal, but our audience never saw that ideal in the first place, and they never saw the ideal self that we carry with us whenever we do art. And so they see, I don't know, maybe they just see the art for what it is, and they see the artist for who they really are, and that's enough, right? Because we always feel like we're not enough, but the audience doesn't think that. And I think that's another disconnect. So, I don't know. Tell me, what do you think? How do you deal with imposter syndrome? Do you have imposter syndrome? What are some sort of the struggles you deal with most as an artist if you don't deal with imposter syndrome? Or even if you deal with imposter syndrome, is there another part of the artist life that you struggle with a lot? So, that was my coffee talk. If it was useful or interesting, give it a like. I will be doing more of these, so go ahead and subscribe if you want to see more of this. I hope you all have a fantastic day. I'm going to drink a good chunk of this coffee, and then I'm going to add a lot of homemade creamer to it because this tastes like melted vanilla ice cream, and I could drink this straight out of the bottle. But I also like black coffee, so I'm at a fork in the road. But I will talk to you guys later. Have a wonderful day, afternoon, morning, evening, whatever. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.